part that got him in that got everybody bitching about him. That's it. That's where it all started. Or that's the tiny clip of his speech that got everybody exercised. I don't see anything at all wrong with anything he said. Just there. If you don't like it, if you're a woman and you want to get a degree and that's more important to you than marriage and having children, then fine. Do your thing. Is he stopping you? Is he standing in your way? Really? You think he's a danger to you living the kind of life that you want to live? I don't think so. I think that's just absolutely stupid to think such a thing. All right, moving on.
She's a primary educator to our children. She's the one who ensures I never let football or my business become a distraction from that of a husband and father. She is the person that knows me best at my core, and it is through our marriage that, Lord willing, we will both attain salvation. I say all of this to you because I have seen it firsthand, how much happier someone can be when they disregard the outside noise and move closer and closer to God's will in their life. Isabel's dream of having a career might not have come true, but if you asked her today if she has any regrets on her decision, she would laugh out loud without hesitation and say, heck no. As a man who gets a lot of praise.
Okay, so, if he was mischaracterizing his wife there, I think that would have come back at him pretty hard. If Isabel, didn't like what he'd said there, I think he would have heard about it. I don't think he would have forged ahead so confidently, talking about his wife and what she would say if he didn't know her, if they weren't very much on the same page. I don't know, like people who were saying he was being insulting to his wife, or saying you're only worthwhile when you become a wife and a mother, or that women should be barefoot and pregnant. I mean, I actually saw fucking idiots on social media saying things like that. Barefoot and pregnant. Jeez.
And has been given a platform to speak to audiences like this one today. I pray that I always use my voice for God and not for myself. Everything I am saying to you is not from a place of wisdom, but rather a place of experience. I am hopeful that these words will be seen as those from a man not much older than you, who feels it is imperative that this class, this generation, and this time in our society must stop pretending that the things we see around us are normal. Heterodox ideas abound even within Catholic circles. For let's be honest, there is nothing good about playing God with having children, whether that be your ideal number or the perfect time to conceive. No matter how you spin it, there is nothing natural about Catholic birth control. It is only in the past few years that I have grown encouraged to speak more boldly and directly, because as I mentioned earlier, I have leaned into my vocation as a husband and father, and as a man.
Okay. That's something that's, I think people outside of the Catholic milieu will have a harder time understanding. But he's talking about that he's saying there should be no such thing as Catholic birth control, and Catholic birth control or Catholic what's it called? I don't know. Natural family planning is you don't use artificial contraception, but if you don't want to have a child right now, you use natural means of knowing when your wife is fertile, and there are ways of doing that, and it's not. I mean, it's very it gets unfairly caricatured by a lot of non-Catholics, but but it's pretty reliable. Now, he's saying though that you should always be open to having children. I could see where this is the one thing I could see where I might say, well, easy for you to say, millionaire. You know, you're a millionaire. You can have as many children as you as you want, and you're an NFL star, and your wife can be a homemaker too. But it's a little harder when it's when it's ordinary people, especially when with the changes that the powers that be, the same powers that be who orchestrated the lockdown fiasco and all the other terrible things that they've done over recent years. They've made it so that you essentially, unless you're one of the wealthy, like Harrison Butker, it makes it really hard to live on just one income. You used to be able to. It used to be something that you could do fairly easily. In America, you could buy a house, you could have a car, a man could just work a factory job and support a family and be okay, but that's not the case anymore. And so that's the one thing I would say, maybe, that's the closest thing I'd come to a critique of the things he's saying here. But
to the gentleman here today,
not
part
too
of what plagues our society is this lie that has been told to you that men are not necessary in the home or in our communities.
Right.
As men, we set the tone of the culture, and when that is absent, disorder, dysfunction, and chaos set in. This absence of men in the home is what plays a large role in the violence we see all around the nation. Other countries do not have nearly the same absentee father rates as we find here in the US, and a correlation could be made in their drastically lower violence rates as well. Be unapologetic in your masculinity, fighting against the cultural emasculation of men. Do hard things. Never settle for what is easy. You might have a talent that you don't necessarily enjoy, but if it glorifies God, maybe you should lean into that over something that you might think suits you better. I speak from experience as an introvert who now finds myself as an amateur public speaker and an entrepreneur, something I never thought I'd be when I received my industrial engineering degree. The road ahead is bright.
Okay, so interesting what he says there, just about saying men, should believe that they are important and not buy into this, the societal lie that we're hearing a lot today, that it's not really important to have a man in the home, and that you should be a good father, but you should also and do all fight cultural emasculation, and so forth. I think that's all really top-notch, good stuff.
Things are changing, society is shifting, and people, young and old, are embracing tradition. Not only has it been my vocation that has helped me and those closest to me, but not surprising to many of you, should be my outspoken embrace of the traditional Latin Mass. I've been very vocal in my love and devotion to the TLM and its necessity for our lives. But what I think gets misunderstood is that people who attend the TLM do so out of pride or preference. I can speak to my own experience, but for most people I have come across within these communities, this simply is not true. I do not attend the TLM because I think I am better than others, or for the smells and bells, or even for the love of Latin. I attend the TLM because I believe, just as the God of the Old Testament was pretty particular in how he wanted to be worshipped, the same holds true for us today. It is through the TLM that I encountered order and began to pursue it in my own life. Aside from the TLM itself, too many of our sacred traditions have been relegated to things of the past, when in my parish, things such as Ember Days, days when we fast and pray for vocations and for our priests, are still adhered to.
Okay. This is something else people who are not Catholic won't understand as well, but the TLM is the traditional Latin Mass, or the Tridentine Mass. It's the Mass said in Latin in the old style before Vatican II, and for a while after Vatican II, they pretty much forbade the TLM from being said, publicly, and then Pope Benedict, I believe, or I think Pope John Paul might have had some dispensation for it, and then for those who preferred it, and then Pope Benedict said, basically, if there's a demand for it in your parish, that you have to have it. And Pope Francis has sort of gone the other way with it, but it's still around, and there are still people who really. And then there are bodies like the Society of Saint Pius the Tenth, which has. Well, I won't even go into. I won't go into the controversy there, whether those masses are valid or not. But this is a group that essentially, in some ways, splintered off from the church during the turbulent times of Vatican II, when they thought the church was leaving behind things that were really essential. So it sounds like Harrison Butker was a very strong proponent of the Latin Mass, and I love the Latin Mass too. But I'm not. I don't find it essential. I think that the Novus Ordo Mass can be performed reverently, and I right now I attend a church that says the so-called Novus Ordo, the Mass, the vernacular, the Mass said in the vernacular in English. There are some places where the Novus Ordo Mass is pretty abused, and like there's terrible music, or like guitar strumming, or other kinds of abominations, or even worse. But I think the non TLM Mass can be performed reverently, but I do respect those who attend the Latin Mass, and so I'm with him on that point as well.
The TLM is so essential that I would challenge each of you to pick a place to move where it is readily available. A lot of people have complaints about the parish or the community, but we should not sacrifice the Mass for community. I prioritize the TLM even if the parish isn't beautiful, the priest isn't great, or the community isn't amazing. I still go to the TLM because I believe the holy sacrifice of the Mass is more important than anything else.
It sounds like he's flirting with saying that the TLM is the only valid Mass. That would be a problem. I mean, I don't know whether he. I know he's not a sede vacantist or anything like that, but he's sounding a little bit like he's saying you should prioritize the TLM, because if you're not going to a place where the TLM is being performed, then, I mean, he doesn't say it directly, but he flirts with saying the TLM is the only is the more valid Mass. I think all Masses that are said by the Catholic Church are efficacious, and the sacraments that are dispensed are efficacious, whether it's the traditional Latin Mass or the so-called Novus Ordo Mass. So that's where I stand on that subject.
I say this knowing full well that when each of you rekindle your knowledge and adherence to many of the Church's greatest traditions, you will see how much more colorful and alive your life can and should be. As you move on from this place and enter into the world, know that you will face many challenges. Sadly, I'm sure many of you know of the countless stories of good and active members of this community who, after graduation and moving away from the Benedictine bubble, have ended up moving in with their boyfriend or girlfriend prior to marriage. Some even leave the church and abandon God. It is always heartbreaking to hear these stories, and there is a desire to know what happened and what went wrong. What you must remember is that life is about doing the small things well, setting yourself up for success, and surrounding yourself with people who continually push you to be the best version of you. I say this all the time, that iron sharpens iron. It's a great reminder that those closest to us should be making us better. If you are dating someone who doesn't even share your faith, how do you expect that person to help you become a saint? If your friend group is filled with people who only think about what you're doing next weekend and are not willing to have those difficult conversations, how can they help sharpen you? As you prepare to enter into the workforce, it is extremely important that you actually think about the places you are moving to. Who is the bishop? What kind of parishes are there? Do they offer the TLM and have priests who embrace their priestly vocation? Cost of living must not be the only arbiter of your choices, for a life without God is not a life at all.
Okay, again, price of living is probably going to be more of an arbiter when you're not a millionaire. When you're not a millionaire superstar NFL player. But anyway, otherwise, yeah, point made.
And the cost of salvation
Valid
is
point.
worth more than any career. I'm excited for the future, and I pray that something I have said will resonate as you move on to the next chapter of your life. Never be afraid to profess the one holy, Catholic, and Apostolic Church, for this is the church that Jesus Christ established, through which we receive sanctifying grace. I know that my message today had a little less fluff than is expected for these speeches, but I believe that this audience and this venue is the best place to speak openly and honestly about who we are and where we all want to go, which is heaven. I thank God for Benedictine College and for the example it provides to the world. I thank God for men like President Minnis who are doing their part for the kingdom. Come to find out, you can have an authentically Catholic college and a thriving football program. Make no mistake, you are entering into mission territory in a post-God world, but you were made for this, and with God by your side and a constant striving for virtue within your vocation, you too can be a saint. Christ is King to the heights.
Standing ovation. Standing ovation. I'm watching them all stand right now. They're standing and cheering. They're standing and cheering. He didn't read the room. He needs to. It's just not the time or the place. Come on, people. Come on. This was a great speech, and I hate I tend to hate college commencement speeches. It is just so much, as he says, fluff most of the time. It's just sentimental dreck. It's just the college, if it's some a college of some prestige, like the one I went to. I went to Emory University, where I think Butker's mom is a physician. I heard anyway. So I mean, back when I was there, they were trying to get high profile people to come in. They had Gorbachev come in and speak one year. A few years later, I think it was Arnold Schwarzenegger. They had Bishop Desmond Tutu from South Africa. They tried to get these heavy hitters, to bring. The same goes for like the moneyed colleges everywhere. They get some ex politician or member of some presidential cabinet or something like that, and it's just like, why are you wasting your time with this shit? But this guy actually said, this was a thoroughly exhilarating speech, and he hit all the marks. A plus, with the minor critiques that I had, where he might have sounded just a tad bit out of touch, for not understanding that Most men aren't fortunate enough to get his kind of salary. But anyway, that's my analysis of the Harrison Butker speech. And if you want to just watch the speech by itself, then go to the description and I'll link it there. Thanks for watching.